The craziest things we have seen people do inside an escape room.
There are numerous instances of that. I don't even know where to begin.
So, if anyone is watching and you have any kind of story to share, by all means, we would love to highlight it on air. But we have plenty of our own stories to tell. I have a little short list here. One of my favorites was the fire extinguisher in F5.
That was a weird day.
Corporate groups. If anyone out there watching is an escape room owner or works at an escape room, I'm sure you could kind of agree with this point and topic that it's phenomenal doing business with corporate events because you're really getting a lot of bang for your buck.
Yeah.
It's very good economically for the business. However, in-house, there tends to be like a complete and total disregard for rules and safety.
Yeah, it's really weird because it's always corporate groups. And, it sounds like I'm throwing them under the bus, and I kind of am. But I have,
we love you, corporate.
I have generally found that most of the corporate groups we get come in with a complete disregard for everything. And as opposed to family outings and friends coming out to play with us, the corporate groups are the ones who seem to just disregard everything.
Well, what I would liken that to is a topic we're going to get into a little later in the show is escape room pricing. With corporate groups, I do believe that it really kind of boils down to one particular element, and it's the fact that they're not paying to be there.
Sure.
There's always more value placed on the experience when the people are paying to be at the experience. And although, of course, the corporate group is paying to be there, we most certainly don't entertain those for free. But the way it kind of ends up going down is very simply the corporate groups are there because HR or management has paid for the experience. They just have to show up. How many times have we had corporate groups that arrive and they're like, "We're here, have a nice day," and they go drink at the bar?
Yeah, that's happened a couple times.
We've gotten paid for like 2 hours worth, 3 hours sometimes worth of experiences.
And they're just here for 15 minutes. They take a group photo and then
and see you later. Yep.
But yeah, there just seems to be a complete change of behavioral patterns. Like, you go anywhere, like, we behave like rational, civilized human beings. When corporate groups come to escape rooms, they seem to be, barbarian destroyers. I think most of the people we've kicked out have been from corporate groups.
Yeah.
The majority of the time we've had to go into the games to yell at them have been corporate groups. But I don't want to trash talk corporate groups, so let's get on to some of the craziest things that we've seen.
Okay, so they're speaking. Well, the reason we segued through this, the gentleman who grabbed the fire extinguisher and one of the cargo boxes in F5, our tornado escape, had a hole in the plywood on the exterior that he felt fit the fire extinguisher hose.
Yeah.
So he shot it off in that box. Thankfully, only in the box.
Yeah.
So that it was contained. But he was about to start shooting a fire extinguisher in the room.
I mean, the fire extinguisher in F5 is underneath the sign that says fire extinguisher is not part of the game, next to the emergency fire exit sign to get you out of the building safely. I believe they were like a data wrangling company.
Okay.
With because the boss was in the lobby.
Yes, which brings me to my other favorite part. But
they data wrangle like for like high end companies. Make more money than I'll ever see in my life, and their idea was to shove a fire extinguisher into a box and pull it off.
Yep. As Mike mentioned, their manager was sitting on the couch in our lobby in Morristown, and I often forget that we call it the Belfry, but basically our office is kind of like a little hangover over the lobby, and we have a picture window looking down so we could kind of see what's going on in there, which we have monitors, but we also have this window. you can hear us upstairs, and I often forget that to a degree. And while we were watching this game, I mean, I don't know if it was only me or if you were, but
no,
like
I was there that day. I forget what I was doing, but,
there were run-ins into this game to like kind of stop what they were doing several times, and I had at one point described them as unfixable. And the game is over. They're coming out, and she had said to her team, she goes, "You know how they described you? They called you unfixable." And I was like, "Oh God."
Considering the circumstances, though, I don't think she was mad at us.
No, she was more frustrated with her own people.
Yeah.
But
was weird.
it was nuts. And of course, are gonna go back to the lady who shook the poop out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I really don't have any other crazy stories in F5.
Yeah, I don't have like crazy stories, but I do have some amusing ones.
F5, one of the things with that game is because it's an obstacle course, we do have to have so many cameras in so many places because safety-wise, we want to make sure we're monitoring all the dangerous spots. And, one of the things we always are very clear about on our website and when you book is that you really need to be wearing more appropriate clothing to the experience you're booking. And in F5, especially with those corporate groups, how many times do we have ladies coming in skirts?
I've had women in heels come in. Like, HR doesn't relay what the game entails, so women in high heels come in, and once we tell them what they're in for, they go, "I'm out," and they leave.
Or they play, and it's a full moon at F5.
Yeah.
So plenty of stories about that. But Witch Hunt, we have a little bit of a creepiness to that game. The ambiance is a little unsettling at times. And with that one, the ghost of the missing servant girl comes into play. And this one woman who was, I don't want to say elderly, but she was a little
I guess she was in
senior.
Like 40s or 50s, actually. She struck me.
Like 50s.
Yeah.
If not early 60s by my memory. But yeah, she got scared. I guess we'll backpedal. We go in to reset the game. It's Mike and myself. And there's a little clump of mud on the floor.
I don't think it was mud.
It wasn't mud. So I picked it up, not thinking, thinking it's mud. And immediately it hit my nostrils. And it was a nugget.
We pulled out the security footage to watch when we think it may have happened. And she was wearing like those like cotton flare pants, like not the yoga pants, but like they're just like flares that are made out of like the cottony fabric that says pink on the butt. And we're watching them play. We're watching the security footage, and we just see her shake her leg, and that's when the clump came out. And you shook her foot, and it just came out of her pant leg. I will point out that no one in this group were wearing boots or any kind of shoes with like deep imprints where mud could get stuck into them. I think one woman was wearing flats. The guy was wearing sneakers, and the woman who
trust me, we analyzed this because all I kept thinking was no, please no. Even dog poo.
I just took his word for it. But yeah, this woman pooped herself in the game. It was kind of funny.
Yep. She pinched off a little nugget.
Yeah.
And then rolled it on the floor.
I haven't had anything else like that crazy, but the one that I like to tell people, we had a group of like 20-something-year-olds in Witch Hunt, and they were in the creepier part of the game. We have like these hanging cats that are just super creepy, and we play cat noises. Gets a good big jolt out of the players all the time, and it's really funny. But like 20-something-year-olds, maybe like a group of 6. 4 of them are off on one side of the game, and guy and girl, another 2 people, are on the other side of the game by the cats, just kind of having like this lovey-dovey romantic moment. And the the girl was like, "Oh, I'm so scared, and the boyfriend was like, "Don't worry, baby, I won't let anything bad happen to you." And then I play the cat noise, like the cat shriek, and the guy goes, "Oh shit!" and he shoves his girlfriend into the wall and hauls ass to the other side of the game to be with the rest of his friends. And it was funny.
Welcome Izzy.
Hello.
Izzy's one of our newest recruits at our Morristown location. Izzy, we're live on the internet at the moment, so we're on Puzzle Talk. But welcome Izzy. We do have another new recruit on the way in soon too, but Izzy's super early, so good for you.
It's dedication.
Dedication right there. We're sharing some of our craziest stories that we've ever seen happen in the escape rooms. Yeah. So, fun time to chime in. So speaking of what you were saying with the little romantically inclined elements, no game has ever seen more romantically inclined moments than Cure Z, the zombie apocalypse.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
I don't know what it is about zombies and the undead, but it sure stirs up some emotions.
It gets the loins burning.
So we have some very infamous stories of Cure Z. Mind you, all of these happened in our Red Bank location before the game was refitted and expanded upon for PA. But let's kind of go down the list here. So, one of my favorites is Cure Z had a series of zombie chambers. And these zombie chambers were big enough to fit a human body inside intentionally so that perception would be that there was really a zombie in the chamber. And we would recess screens in them so that this way it would appear to the viewer or player that the zombie was trying to break out and having a whole series of scientific tests done on them. But like I said, you could fit an entire body inside of these chambers, and there were 4 of them inside the game space. We have a group coming, and a lot of our groups, because Trapdoor is public ticketing, are mixed. So we'll have this particular group was, I believe, 8 teenagers and 2 adults, mid-40-somethings. It's always the mid-40-somethings. And we start this game out and we're thinking, dear God, these poor adults, this poor couple that's stuck in there with all these teenagers. Turns out, poor teenagers. So the game is going on, and I get flagged over to the screen, and the game master's like, I don't know where the couple went. They're missing. I'm like, did they get fed up and leave because of the teenagers? Like, what, So immediately, we're tracing through all the cameras. Can't find them anywhere. Well, in all of our games, we'll have multiple audio channels in the game as well. So I start clicking through all the microphones. We heard them.
Oh, boy.
On top of one of the zombie chambers was a microphone. Just so happens that was the particular chamber they had chosen. So, go running upstairs, pull the chamber from the wall, which, mind you, they're heavy. It's not easy to move those. Pull the chamber from the wall. They are mid-act, completely butt-ass naked inside.
Oh, great.
Yep.
I guess that's Central Jersey, but Central Jersey is a weird place. It's like a nexus point for weirdos.
If the zombie chamber screen was not there, they would have been looking at this woman's face planted up against the screen, because her face was planted up against the back of the TV.
Oh, brother.
When I moved the chamber, she fell forward. That's how leaned up she was.
You gotta make the stuff up, everybody.
So
we've seen some shit.
We have seen some shit. So what makes this even better is that wasn't really the end of the story. It wasn't like, cover up and like, oh my God, whatever. No, they did not continue. But what they did do was grab their clothes off the floor, run down the stairs into the lobby, and they did not park in our parking lot because our Red Bank location has its own parking. Across the street, there is a main town parking lot, and they were parked in there. So they ran clear out of our lot into the main town parking lot on a Saturday night in a downtown city.
Totally naked.
Holding each other at the hips to each other.
Isn't love grand? On that note, I think Witch Hunt destroyed an engagement.
Oh yeah, I remember this story.
I had a group of two, a guy and his girlfriend. I guess they were in like their late 30s, and they just started getting into this big shouting match. I guess every idea that this woman had about solving puzzles, the guy would shoot down. Like, her ideas were all wrong. His ideas were the only ones that could possibly matter. So she just sits on the floor in the kitchen area, and they start shouting at one another. And the guy just goes, "If you want to survive this marriage, you got to survive this game." And I was like, "Oh shit, this got real." You know, like what started off as kind of like this amusing, you know, squabble between two people in a relationship just got really serious real quick. And I walked in there at the end of the game, offered to take their photo, and the guy was like, "You know, this game almost destroyed our marriage." Ha ha ha. And I was like, "Don't joke, because I'm pretty sure you guys aren't getting married."
Well, we had with Bogeyman, we've already told this story, so I'll only like clip it. But the guy who brought his fiance and, well, no, sorry, not fiance yet, brought his girlfriend and all of their friends to Bogeyman and planned for us to go in and scare his future bride, and ended up scared himself, and he actually pooped his pants in the game. So we ruined that engagement night.
Yeah, well, it's memorable, I guess. But you know, I'm sure those people ended up getting engaged and got married. This group that I had, I
yeah, they did. They followed up.
I hope my group ended up working out their bullshit at least. You know, I don't know if they got married, but yeah, it's
so
fun stuff.
Another QRZ X-rated story was the bachelorette party. We've actually, Red Bank has had a lot of bachelorette parties that got weird. We actually had an entire fitness group one time basically start stripping for clues, and we wouldn't give them clues, so they kept stripping. When it got really weird was when they were completely topless doing push-ups in thongs. Why did anyone want to see that?
Again, Central Jersey doesn't really exist, so I think it's kind of like this weird nexus point.
It's like the Twilight Zone of New Jersey.
It just attracts weirdos. Because
so,
we never have that problem up here. We don't get a lot of strange people like that.
Well, and that, you know, I remember they did, I kid you not, they did their group photo upside down twerking. They were doing a handstand upside down twerking for their group photo.
They put their clothes back on at least?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But anyway, so we have this bachelorette party in there. And Zombie Game is running, QRZ. They get to this room where we have a fully articulate autopsy body that we called Abraham. Girl climbed up, bride-to-be, climbed on top of the autopsy table, pulled her underwear off from under her skirt, and went for a ride on Abraham's face. Ran up there. The rest of the bachelorette party formed a line to blockade us from stopping her and told us, "You let her finish."
Yep.
So we called the cops, but basically had to sit there while she finished.
You will probably never experience that while you're here.
Thank God.
I mean, I hope so. I mean, I hope that never happens.
So there's that. We've had some other weird stuff, like stoners are one of my favorites because they just do the most harmless, stupidest things imaginable. I believe we have a video on our channel, like the top 10 people not to bring to an escape room.
Yeah.
And stoners is one of the lists because we literally had this guy just stare at the countdown clock. We had a serial killer game, Escape the Architect, and it was the only game we've had that actually had a countdown clock. And because it fit for the story.
Yeah.
And he's just staring at it intently. And he's like, the numbers are changing. This has to be some kind of code. It's literally just the clock counting down how much time they had left. But then we had this girl in QRZ. So, for the millions of you that have played QRZ, and the hundreds that haven't, QRZ has these like Quiet Z pill bottles that are part of the story of the game. And this one girl spent her entire hour when Kierzy was in Red Bank stacking the bottles. She checked every bottle to make sure there was nothing in it.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, those bottles are scannable, and they actually do go to a website and stuff like that. But she didn't do that. She just stacked all of them. I believe there was 600 of them. Because I remember that was like the order interval that was placed.
Brother.
When she was on the last, like, 4 or 5 of them left, one of her friends knocked into the bottles, and she just broke down into hysterical tears.
Drugs are bad, kids. That's all I can say.
So,
I don't think I have anything crazy, anything else like that. I mean, Morristown, for the most part, is pretty tame. We just get people making out and just arguing with one another. So, I mean...
yeah, lots of arguments, but that's really the extent.
North Jersey people are relatively normal. Relatively.
And we haven't seen... I mean, we've only been open since Christmas of 18 in PA. But in the Poconos, we haven't seen anything crazy yet either. More crazier issues with staff than customers, so nothing really there. So I guess, moving on.
Story versus